Welcome back to the channel, Rare Coins History, everyone, and get ready for a deep dive into a coin that most people have touched, spent, or ignored at some point, the Washington quarter from the year 1988. At first glance, a 1988 quarter seems like just another ordinary piece of change you'd find under your couch cushions, at the bottom of an old jar, or stuck in a car cup holder. But what if I told you that a rare version of this coin could be worth an absolutely stunning fortune today? That's right, a small, everyday coin from the late 80s could hold a life-changing surprise, and by the end of this video you'll hear exactly how much that number is, so stay with me to the finish. To understand why this coin has become so interesting to collectors, you have to take a trip back to 1988. The United States was in the final years of the Reagan administration, the economy was buzzing, pop culture was booming, and coins like the quarter were being used in arcades, vending machines, pay phones, buses, and everyday life. The U.S. Mint struck hundreds of millions of Washington quarters that year across multiple facilities, including the Philadelphia Mint with no mint mark, the Denver Mint with the D mint mark, and the San Francisco Mint, which produced proof versions with the S mint mark. Most people never looked twice at these coins. They were pocket change, not collectibles, but over the decades, the smallest details began to matter. Time has a way of separating the ordinary from the extraordinary. In the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. A 1988 Washington quarter that's been circulated, scratched, dulled, or worn down from years of handling usually carries little more than its face value. But a coin that somehow survived in pristine, untouched, uncirculated condition, especially if it was struck cleanly with sharp details and has been kept safe from environmental damage, can suddenly become a treasure. Let's talk about the design that still stands as one of the most recognizable in U.S. coinage. On the obverse, the portrait of George Washington has been featured on the quarter since 1932, honoring the bicentennial of his birth. Even in 1988, the design continued largely unchanged, Washington's bust facing left, with the word Liberty above, the phrase "In God We Trust" to the side, and the mint year just below the neck. Beneath the ribbon of the ponytail, the mint mark shows where the coin came from. If there is no letter, that means it was struck in Philadelphia. Now flip the coin over and you'll see the heraldic eagle, wings spread in powerful symmetry, clutching a bundle of arrows. Olive branches lie just beneath, symbolizing peace balanced with strength. United States of America arcs along the top, E pluribus unum stands proudly in the center above the eagle's head, and $quarter rests at the bottom. This classic eagle reverse would continue only a few more years before the state quarters program changed coin history forever in 1999. That means 1988 is part of the final stretch of the original Washington eagle reverse design, giving it more historical appeal. Collectors today focus on a few key things: mint mark, strike quality, luster, and whether the coin shows any errors or anomalies. For the 1988 quarter, the Philadelphia and Denver issues are the most commonly found, while the San Francisco proofs were meant mostly for collectors and came in sets, not circulation. Still, even a proof coin can skyrocket in value if perfectly preserved and graded at the highest level by a professional service, but then there are the real gems, the coins that were struck with exceptional sharpness, no contact marks, perfect surfaces, and mirror-like luster. Sometimes these coins were saved by chance, sealed in rolls, forgotten in collections, or stored carefully by very lucky people who had no idea how much they were protecting their future investment. On top of that, you have to consider rare mint errors. Wrong planchet strikes, double dies, off-center obverse or reverse designs, clipped planchets, missing mint marks, and die cracks can dramatically increase value because of their rarity and uniqueness. As the years pass, fewer high-grade survivors remain untouched. Coins get spent, damaged, tarnished, or lost. That means today's competition among collectors for flawless examples is fierce. When a nearly perfect or error version of the 1988 quarter shows up, bidders jump in hard, and prices climb fast. Even a difference of one grading point on the scale can mean the difference between just a nice coin and one worth serious money. Imagine finding a shiny, sharp, perfectly struck 1988 Washington quarter with no scratches, no discoloration, and that crisp, frosty surface collectors love. Or imagine discovering a subtle minting mistake that makes your coin different from nearly every other quarter ever released that year. Most people would never notice it, but to the right buyer, that detail can transform a humble 25 cents into a high-end collectible. Today we're exploring the Washington quarter from the year 1995, a coin millions of people have handled, ignored, or lost in the cracks of their car seats. But not every one of those coins is equal, and some of them, in the right condition and from the right mint, have become incredibly valuable to collectors all over the world. The Washington quarter has an iconic look that makes it instantly recognizable. By 1995, it had already been a part of American currency for more than 6 decades, ever since its introduction in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington. The obverse, or front, still displayed Washington's strong profile facing left, the word liberty arching above his head, and the phrase "In God We Trust" beside his jawline. Just below the portrait sits the year 1995, and depending on where the coin was made, you'll find a mint mark, no mark for Philadelphia, a D for Denver, or an S for San Francisco. On the reverse, the classic heraldic eagle design remained in full detail, one of the final years before the State Quarter series would completely replace it in 1999. The eagle is perched on a bundle of arrows with olive branches beneath, wings spread wide, a powerful symbol of authority, peace, and national identity. Around the border, United States of America stretches at the top, E pluribus unum sits just above the eagle, and quarter dollar marks the denomination clearly at the bottom. In 1995, the U.S. Mint struck hundreds of millions of these quarters for circulation. They passed through gas stations, grocery stores, toll booths, arcade machines, laundromats, and payphones. They were dropped, stacked, tossed, scraped, and carried in pockets and purses across the entire country. Most of them look exactly like you would expect: worn-down surfaces, faded luster, tiny scratches, dull edges, and lost detail. Those everyday coins are almost always worth only face value, but then there are the survivors. Coins that were never tossed in a change jar or spent in a vending machine. Coins that were pulled from fresh rolls, held aside, sealed in protective sleeves, or accidentally stored away untouched. These are the coins collectors chase, because a Washington quarter from 1995 in mint state condition can look dramatically different from the one at the bottom of your desk drawer. The shine, the texture, the sharpness of Washington's hair, the detail in the feathers on the eagle, everything becomes a clue pointing toward value, and it doesn't end with condition. Errors and oddities add another layer of excitement. A wrong planchet strike, a doubled die, a clipped edge, an off-center strike, or a missing mint mark can instantly transform a common coin into a rare collectible. One small flaw during production that escapes quality control can turn that single coin into a one-of-a-kind piece. Collectors spend hours under magnification searching for doubling in the letters, misalignments in the date, or anomalies in the metal. When they find one, bidding wars can begin. Coins from the San Francisco Mint, especially proofs, are often found in better condition since they were originally intended for collectors and packaged carefully. But even a Denver or Philadelphia strike can command serious attention when graded by a professional service at the top levels. The higher the grade, the higher the price jumps, especially when barely any marks or imperfections are present. Most people have handled a 1995 quarter dozens of times without realizing that some examples are worth more than entire collections of newer coins. It all comes down to rarity in condition, eye appeal, grading, and collector demand. When the perfect mix of shine, strike quality, and scarcity come together, that's when the jaw-dropping values come out. So before you toss your change into a cup or slide a random quarter into a machine, take a closer look. Check the mint mark. Look at the surfaces. See if there's anything unusual about the lettering or the date. It's possible that someone watching this right now has already touched a rare piece without realizing it. Coins like this aren't always locked away in safes or displayed at auction houses. Sometimes they're hiding inside rolls from the bank or stuck behind a drawer. Over the years, collectors have increasingly turned their attention to modern quarters that were once overlooked, and the 1995 Washington quarter is now on that list. The combination of nostalgia, high-grade scarcity, and potential mint errors makes it a serious contender among valuable modern coins. And while most will remain at face value forever, a select few have shocked the collecting world when they're discovered in exceptional condition. Today, promised yourself you'd sort one day. Now imagine that one of those ordinary-looking quarters, especially one from 1971, might actually be worth a staggering amount of money if it has the right qualities. Most people don't give a second glance to coins from the early 70s, but collectors today are paying very close attention to that very year, and for good reason. Let's step back to 1971 in the United States. The world looked very different. Color television was becoming a household standard, the Apollo mission still echoed in people's minds, muscle cars ruled the streets, gas was cheap, and the quarter with George Washington's portrait was already a familiar piece of American life. But by this time, the metal composition of quarters had gone through a major change. Just a few years earlier, in 1965, the mint had removed silver from circulating quarters, replacing it with a copper-nickel-clad composition. So the 1971 quarter wasn't made of silver, but that doesn't mean it isn't valuable. In fact, sometimes coins without precious metal become even harder to find in perfect condition because they were used carelessly and heavily in everyday life. On the front of the 1971 Washington quarter, George Washington's left-facing profile dominates the design. The word Liberty sits above his head, In God We Trust rests to the left near his neck, and the year 1971 is positioned directly below. If you look just above the date and slightly to the right you may find a mint mark. If it's AD, it was minted in Denver. If there's no mint mark at all, that means it came from Philadelphia. San Francisco struck proof coins that year with an S mint mark, but those were not intended for circulation. Each mint location produced different quantities, and the survival rates in perfect condition today differ drastically depending on where the coin originated. Flip the coin over and you'll see the classic heraldic eagle that had represented the quarter for decades before the state quarters era began. The eagle's wings stretch out wide, gripping a bundle of arrows while olive branches rest just beneath. United States of America curves across the top, E pluribus unum is placed just above the eagle's head, and quarter dollar forms a base at the bottom. This design is iconic, powerful, and instantly recognizable to anyone who used quarters in the second half of the 20th century. Now, millions upon millions of these coins were minted in 1971. At the time, they were meant purely for circulation. They were used in arcade machines at bowling alleys, arcade cabinets in neon-lit shops, laundromats with clunky change machines, payphones on street corners, bus fares, toll booths, diners, and schools. Quarters were workhorses of everyday transactions. They clinked around in glove compartments, rattled across countertops, and fell between cushions. As a result, the overwhelming majority of 1,971 quarters have scratches, dents, discoloration, loss of luster, and rub-down details from decades of use. But then there are the rare exceptions, coins that somehow survived untouched, pulled aside by a collector, sealed in a roll that was forgotten in a drawer, or preserved in an album where air and moisture couldn't damage the metal. These uncirculated coins can still show their original mint luster, and all the fine details in Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers remain crisp and sharp. Then there's another layer that excites serious numismatists: minting errors and anomalies. Every now and then, a coin is struck with a flaw that slips past inspection. Some quarters are off-center, missing design elements, doubled in certain letters or numbers, or struck on the wrong metal planchet. Even slight differences, barely visible to the untrained eye, can dramatically change the value of a 1971 quarter. Coin specialists use magnification to examine surfaces for doubling in the date, distortions in the lettering, cracks in the dies, or unusual rims. When a rare error or abnormality combines with excellent condition, that coin skyrockets in desirability. Professional grading services evaluate these coins on a detailed scale. A high grade with full luster, no visible scratches, and clean strike marks can send a collector's interest through the roof. Add in a mint mark with lower survival rates or a unique die variety, and things get even more intense at auction. Not every coin earns attention, but the few that do can command unbelievable prices. Imagine someone having a 1971 quarter tucked away for decades in a box of keepsakes, not realizing it was better preserved than nearly any other from that year. Or a coin roll inherited from a relative being opened and revealing pristine examples with strong details and untouched surfaces. Those are the kinds of finds that can attract fierce bidding wars and headline-making prices. Most people overlook these coins simply because they don't look special at first glance. There's no gold plating, no flashy color, no decorative packaging. It's an everyday quarter from a year many would hardly consider historic. But that's the beauty of numismatics. Sometimes the most ordinary-looking coins hide extraordinary potential. That's why any 1971 quarter with sharp details, unblemished luster, a mint state grade, or an unusual flaw can become a treasure instead of spare change. And it only takes one exceptional example to completely rewrite what someone thought they knew about the value of coins hiding in pocket change and family collections. But what if that seemingly ordinary 1985 Washington quarter could actually be hiding a stunning secret? One that could change the way you look at every coin you come across? The truth is, most people have handled this coin thousands of times without ever giving it a second glance. The 1985 Washington quarter was part of the everyday economy during a time when video rental stores were booming, arcades were packed with kids playing Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, and payphones still lined every gas station and shopping center. Millions upon millions of these coins were minted across the United States, and they passed from hand to hand in every corner of the country. The design that year followed the familiar style everyone recognizes. On the front is the profile of George Washington, facing left with the word Liberty stretched across the top. Just beside his jawline sits the phrase "In God We Trust." Beneath the portrait, the date 1985 is clearly stamped, and if you look closely near Washington's ponytail, you'll find the mint mark. AD indicates the Denver Mint, no mint mark means it came from Philadelphia, and an S identifies proof coin struck at the San Francisco Mint. Flip the coin over and you'll find the iconic eagle design still in use before the state quarters completely changed the look of circulating quarters in 1999. The eagle spreads its wings wide, perched powerfully above a bundle of arrows with olive branches resting below. United States of America arcs across the top, while E Pluribus Unum nestles just above the eagle's head, and quarter dollar sits below the image. Even after decades, this design still feels classic and bold, but here's what most people miss. While huge numbers of these coins were created, only a tiny fraction still exist in exceptional condition today. The vast majority of 1,985 quarters have scratches, wear, discoloration, and fading from decades of circulation. They rattled around in pockets, scraped across countertops, fell between car seats, jingled in cash registers, and sat in change machines year after year. These coins were never meant to be collectibles, they were built for use, and use is exactly what they got. That's why the few coins that were saved early, before they could be damaged, are now incredibly significant to collectors. A flawless, uncirculated 1985 Washington quarter with sharp details, full mint luster, and no visible wear can be almost impossible to find today. Many of those perfect coins were tucked into rolls or mint sets and forgotten, or they ended up in the hands of someone who didn't realize they were preserving something rare. But condition isn't the only thing that can skyrocket the value of this coin. Mint errors are the wildcards that take collectors by surprise. A slightly off-center strike, a double die, an incorrect planchet, missing lettering, misaligned elements, or even subtle variations in the rim can turn an average quarter into a highly coveted treasure. These flaws are not always obvious at first glance, but once discovered, they can create a bidding frenzy among serious collectors. Add to that the concept of grading, where professional services determine the official condition of a coin, and the stakes get even higher. A 1985 Washington quarter graded at the top levels on the Sheldon scale can command values that seem unbelievable to anyone not deeply involved in numismatics. Even a small improvement in grading points can mean a dramatic jump in price. Proof coins from the San Francisco Mint also attract attention. Although they were never meant to circulate, some found their way into public use. These coins have mirror-like fields, frosted designs, and heightened clarity. A preserved proof with an S mint mark from 1985, especially one with perfect surfaces and no handling marks, can bring in significant value on the market. Think about all those years this coin has existed, tucked into pockets during road trips, used for arcade games, exchanged at movie theaters, and relied on in an era before debit cards ruled the world. Most people assume a coin from the mid-80s has no collector appeal, but serious numismatists know that the true rarity hides not in the year alone, but in the condition and the quirks that survived the minting process. Some of the most exciting discoveries happen when someone casually sorts through change and stumbles across something special without realizing it at first. A crisp edge, a perfect shine, a flawless strike, or an unusual feature catches the eye, and suddenly that coin becomes the star of the collection. There are coins from 1985 sitting in jars, drawers, and old wallets right now that could be worth far more than their face value if they are in the right condition or carry a rare error. And because this coin blends into the background of everyday currency so easily, people often overlook the very pieces that could bring them a fortune. Collectors and buyers today are willing to pay shocking amounts for the finest examples. Auctions have proven time and time again that a coin doesn't need to be made of gold or silver to be worth big money. It just needs rarity, perfection, demand, and the right eyes to recognize its value. Today, times without ever realizing just how valuable certain examples can become under the right conditions. To really understand why this coin matters, picture daily life in 1980. The country was shifting into a new decade of technology, fashion, and culture. Arcade games were spreading everywhere, gas stations still had coin-operated air pumps, and pocket change carried real importance. Debit cards were rare, vending machines relied on coins, and making a long-distance call often meant dropping quarters into a phone booth. During this time, the U.S. Mint struck a massive number of Washington quarters to keep up with everyday use. They were produced in Denver and Philadelphia, and the mint mark appears just beside Washington's ponytail. If there's a D, it came from Denver. If there's no letter, it was made in Philadelphia. Proof coins with an S mint mark were made in San Francisco, but those were intended for collectors and usually didn't circulate. On the front of the 1980 quarter, George Washington's profile face is left in the classic portrait first chosen nearly half a century earlier. Liberty is stamped across the top, with "In God We Trust" positioned beside his jaw. The date 1980 sits below the portrait. Turn the coin over and the familiar eagle design still dominates the reverse. The eagle stretches its wings wide, perched atop arrows that rest above olive branches, symbolizing strength and peace. United States of America curves across the top edge, E pluribus unum sits just above the eagle's head, and $quarter marks the denomination at the bottom. These coins were issued long after silver was removed from circulating quarters, so they were made with a copper-nickel-clad composition. They were durable and built to survive heavy use, which is exactly what happened. The result is that almost all surviving 1980 quarters show plenty of signs of circulation, worn-down details, faint luster, small scratches, rim marks, discoloration, and years of handling. People tossed them into tip jars, lost them under car seats, stacked them in rolls, and passed them through soda machines without hesitation, but the quarters that collectors chase today are the very small percentage that escaped that kind of wear. A coin that was pulled from circulation right away, stored in a protective holder, or discovered untouched in a forgotten roll can still show its original shine decades later. Those uncirculated examples, with razor-sharp details and bright surfaces, can fetch real money. Even the tiniest difference in condition can mean a huge difference in value. Then you have the error coins, the unexpected stars of the coin world. During mass production, things don't always go perfectly. A coin could be struck off-center, the die could double an image or a number, the metal blank could be incorrect, or the imprint could be weak or missing in certain spots. These quirky mistakes, often invisible to someone casually glancing at a coin, become magnets for serious collectors when discovered on a 1980 quarter. Proof coins from the San Francisco Mint stand out as well. They were specially made with mirror-like surfaces and frosted details. Though rarely seen in circulation, a flawless proof with an S mint mark from 1980 can command serious attention if preserved properly. Even Philadelphia and Denver pieces can skyrocket in value when graded at high levels on the Sheldon scale by professional services. What makes this so fascinating is that the vast majority of people who've handled a 1980 quarter never knew its potential. They've rattled in lunch money, been used for parking meters, dropped into laundromats, or rolled around in drawers for years. Yet somewhere, hidden among millions of circulated coins, a handful of exceptional pieces survived untouched. Imagine someone digging through coins while cleaning out an old house and spotting a pristine quarter from 1980 with clear luster and crisp edges. Or a coin collector opening a sealed roll from decades ago and finding a flawless Denver Mint strike with no signs of wear. Those moments are what fuel the excitement and unpredictability of coin collecting. People often assume that only coins made of silver or from the 1800s can be valuable. But modern coins, especially those that weren't preserved intentionally, can become worth fortunes when they survive in conditions few others did. The 1980 Washington quarter proves exactly that. Rarity isn't just about age or metal, but condition, demand, and uniqueness. Collectors today are constantly on the lookout for those high-grade examples and rare mint errors from this year. The small details most people ignore are the very things experts obsess over: the sharpness of the eagle's feathers, the shine of the fields, the clarity of Washington's hair curls, the strength of the strike, or the presence of something unusual where it shouldn't be, and that all leads to what shocks people the most. One of the finest known examples of the 1980 Washington quarter, preserved so well that it stood out above millions of others, has reached an astonishing value of $92,000.